The first time I saw Chidi, he was sitting on the wooden bench outside Mama Ngozi's shop, quietly eating a plate of jollof rice. There was nothing remarkable about him at first glance. Just a regular young man, dressed simply in a faded shirt and jeans, with a calm and reserved demeanor. But there was something about his eyes that made you pause. They seemed to hold secrets, as if he carried a heavy burden. If you had asked anyone in Katapar about him, they'd have told you the same thing. He's a quiet one, keeps to himself. Yet there was an air of mystery about him, something that made you want to know more. What brought him to our small township? Why did he choose such a modest life when he could have gone anywhere else? Let me take you back to the beginning, to the day he arrived in Katapar, the small township where our story unfolds. Chidi arrived in Katapar on a scorching, dusty afternoon. The sun hung low, casting long shadows across the township's narrow streets. He stepped off the old creaky bus, the kind that groaned at every stop as if protesting its journey, with nothing but a small weathered bag slung over his shoulder. He paused for a moment, taking in the sights and sounds of the bustling town. Women balanced baskets of vegetables on their heads, children darted through the market square, and traders called out their prices in loud, rhythmic chants. The township wasn't much to look at, just a cluster of houses with peeling paint, a dusty market square, and a few uneven streets lined with makeshift stalls. But it had a charm that couldn't be ignored. The people here were kind and hard-working, though life wasn't always easy. Chidi's simple attire, a faded shirt and well-worn jeans, made him blend in seamlessly with the locals. He walked purposefully, his shoes kicking up small clouds of dust with each step until he reached Mama Ngozi's restaurant. The aroma of freshly cooked jollof rice and fried plantains wafted through the air, mingling with the chatter of customers seated on wooden benches. It was one of the few places in town where travellers could get a hearty meal and locals could catch up on the latest gossip. He stepped inside, his quiet demeanour catching the attention of Mama Ngozi herself. She was a stout and cheerful woman in her 50s, her bright patterned wrapper tied securely around her ample waist. Her sharp eyes took him in, her hands resting on her hips. "What do you want, young man?" she asked, her voice both warm and authoritative. Chidi smiled faintly, his tone respectful. "I'm looking for work, Ma." Mama Ngozi raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a skeptical smile. "Work? You don't look like someone who's used to hard labour." She chuckled, her laughter deep and infectious. "I'm willing to learn," Chidi replied softly, his gaze steady. Mama Ngozi's curiosity was piqued, but she wasn't one to waste time. She grabbed a broom from behind the counter and handed it to him. "If you can sweep this floor without complaining, we'll talk." Chidi nodded and got to work immediately. The floor wasn't just dusty, it was a mosaic of footprints and spilled food. Yet he swept with focus and determination, his movements deliberate and precise. By the time he was done, the floor gleamed, and Mama Ngozi was visibly impressed. "Well, it seems you're not all talk," she said with a nod. "You can start tomorrow, don't make me regret it." And that was how Chidi became a waiter and cleaner at Mama Ngozi's restaurant. He threw himself into the work, moving with a quiet efficiency that soon caught the attention of the regular customers. He wiped tables, served plates with care, and even helped in the kitchen when things got busy. His calm demeanour and unwavering work ethic earned him respect, but they also sparked curiosity. Why had he come to Katapar, and why did he seem so different? Despite his humble appearance, there was something about him that didn't quite fit. It was a cool, breezy evening when Chidi first saw Amara. The restaurant was alive with its usual hustle and bustle, the clinking of plates and the murmur of conversations creating a symphony of everyday life. Amara walked in just as the lanterns were being lit, casting a soft golden glow across the room. She was striking, not just because of her beauty, but because of the warmth she radiated. Her kind eyes and genuine smile lit up the space, making everyone around her feel at ease. Amara worked as a teacher at the local primary school. Her days were long, filled with the noise and energy of young children, and she often came to Mama Ngozi's for dinner before heading home. Dressed in a simple blouse and skirt, she carried herself with a quiet confidence that caught Chidi's attention immediately. He watched as she greeted Mama Ngozi with a cheerful, "Good evening, Ma. How are you today?" "Fine, my dear. You're looking well," Mama Ngozi replied, her tone affectionate. Amara was one of her favourite customers, always polite and appreciative. Chidi's curiosity grew as he observed her from a distance. Unlike some of the other women who frequented the restaurant, Amara was unpretentious. She treated everyone with kindness, from the bustling waiters to the older men playing drafts in the corner. When her food arrived, she bowed her head briefly to say a quiet prayer before eating. And when she left, she always made sure to leave a small tip, even though her modest salary as a teacher didn't leave much room for extravagance. Over time, Amara and Chidi struck up a friendship. It started with polite exchanges. "Good evening, Chidi. How's work?" she'd ask, her voice filled with genuine interest. "Busy as always," he'd reply with a small smile. But as the days turned into weeks, their conversations grew longer and more personal. They talked about books, the challenges of teaching, and the quirks of life in Katapar. One evening, as they sat on a bench outside the restaurant, Amara turned to Chidi with a curious look. "Chidi, you're too smart to be sweeping floors," she said, her tone gentle but firm. "Why are you here, really?" Chidi chuckled, brushing off her question. "Hard work is hard work, Amara. It doesn't matter what it looks like." Amara smiled, though her curiosity remained. She liked Chidi's humility and admired his quiet strength. Unlike some of the other men in Katapar, who were quick to boast about their achievements or complain about their struggles, Chidi seemed content with the simple life he had carved out for himself. There was a mystery about him, but Amara chose not to push. She valued the friendship they were building and didn't want to ruin it with too many questions. For Chidi, these moments with Amara became the highlight of his days. Her laughter was like music, her kindness a balm to his weary soul. Though he never revealed his true feelings, he found himself drawn to her in a way he couldn't ignore. She was different from anyone he had ever met, genuine, selfless, and full of life. And for the first time in a long while, Chidi began to hope that he might find the love he had been searching for. As their bond grew deeper, Chidi found himself captivated by Amara's kind heart and unpretentious nature. But a lingering fear kept him cautious. After all the betrayal he had faced in the past, he couldn't let himself hope too much. He needed to know, truly know, that Amara's feelings for him were genuine. So, he continued to live modestly, sweeping floors and serving tables, never once revealing the life of luxury he had left behind. One sweltering afternoon, as Chidi carried a bucket of water to clean the restaurant's patio, a group of young men leaned against a nearby wall, their laughter sharp and mocking. "Hey, Chidi," one of them called out. "You're quite the catch, huh? A grown man scrubbing floors for a living." Another chimed in, smirking. "Do you think any woman would seriously want a man like you? Or are you just hoping someone pities you enough to stick around?" The words sliced through Chidi, but he kept his head down and continued with his task. Still, their taunts followed him like an unwelcome shadow. As the sun set that evening, he couldn't help but wonder, would Amara still care for him if she knew the truth about who he was? The answer came sooner than he expected. One chilly morning, Chidi woke up shivering, his head heavy and his throat dry. He had been pushing himself too hard, and now his body was demanding rest. But there was work to be done, and he couldn't afford to slack off. He tried to power through, but by midday he collapsed behind the restaurant, his fever raging. Amara was the first to notice his absence. When she found him slumped against the wall, her heart sank. Without a second thought, she called Mama Ngozi and helped carry Chidi to his small room at the back of the restaurant. Over the next few days, Amara stayed by his side, bringing him medicine, cooking him warm meals, and wiping his forehead with a damp cloth to ease his fever. One evening, as she sat beside him with a bowl of soup, Chidi opened his eyes and managed a weak smile. "Why are you doing this?" he whispered, his voice barely audible. Amara looked at him, her brows furrowed in concern. "Because you're my friend, Chidi. Isn't that what friends do?" Her words struck him deeply. Despite his exhaustion, a warmth spread through him that had nothing to do with the soup or the blankets she had tucked around him. He realized in that moment that Amara's kindness wasn't performative or conditional. It was real, unselfish, and genuine. That night, as Amara hummed softly while tidying up his room, Chidi made a silent promise to himself. He would tell her the truth. Amara deserved to know who he really was, and why he had come to Katapar. What no one in Katapar knew was that Chidi wasn't just another traveler looking for work. He was the heir to one of the most prominent business empires in the country. His family, the Okafors, owned a chain of luxury hotels, vast farmlands, and a fleet of transport companies. But despite the wealth and prestige, Chidi had grown weary of his privileged life. In his world, it seemed impossible to separate love from greed. Time and again, women professed their devotion to him, only for their true intentions to surface. Gifts, vacations, access to his connections. These were the things they craved, not his companionship. Each betrayal left him more disillusioned than the last. Chidi knew he couldn't live like this anymore. If he wanted true love, he would have to find it on his own terms. Stripping himself of his privileges, he left the city and its temptations behind. He chose Katapar for its simplicity, a place where his name held no power and his wealth carried no weight. Here, he hoped to find someone who would see him for the man he truly was, rather than the fortune he possessed. But living as an ordinary man came with its own challenges. The hard labor, the mockery from townsfolk, the uncertainty of whether he'd ever find what he was looking for. It wasn't easy. Still, as Chidi worked alongside the people of Katapar, he found a certain peace he hadn't known before. Life here was slower, more honest, and filled with a quiet beauty. Meeting Amara had been an unexpected gift. Her humility, kindness, and laughter were unlike anything he had experienced in his previous relationships. She didn't care about appearances or material things. But Chidi couldn't let himself hope too much. Not yet. He needed to be sure her heart was as genuine as it seemed. Now, as he lay recovering from his fever, the truth of Amara's love seemed undeniable. And for the first time in years, Chidi allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had found the kind of love he had been searching for all along. After weeks of sleepless nights and constant inner turmoil, Chidi made the decision to reveal his true identity to Amara. He knew that taking this step would either solidify their bond or shatter it completely. It was a gamble, but one he was willing to take. He could no longer keep her in the dark about who he truly was. One serene evening, under the soft orange hues of the setting sun, Chidi asked Amara to meet him by the river that flowed through Katapar. The air was still, and the gentle ripple of the water seemed to echo the tension building in his chest. Amara arrived, her face lit with a warm smile that always managed to ease his anxieties, even if only slightly. "What's this about, Chidi?" she asked, sitting beside him on the grassy bank. Chidi's heart pounded as he stared at the water, unable to meet her gaze. "Amara, there's something I've been hiding," he began, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara's smile faded, replaced by a look of curiosity mixed with concern. "What is it? You can tell me." He took a deep breath, finally summoning the courage to look her in the eyes. "My full name is Chidi Okafor," he said, pausing to gauge her reaction. Her expression remained neutral, so he continued. "My family owns one of the largest businesses in the country. I come from immense wealth." Amara's eyes widened in disbelief. "You're wealthy?" she asked, her voice tinged with shock. Not just wealthy, Chidi admitted, his tone growing firmer. My family is one of the richest in the country. I came here to escape all that, to find someone who would love me for me, not for my money or status. The silence that followed was unbearable. Chidi could feel his chest tighten as he waited for Amara's response. Finally, she spoke, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Chidi, I don't care about your money, she said, her gaze unwavering. I care about the man who swept floors without complaint, who showed kindness to everyone around him, even when they didn't deserve it. That's the person I've come to know and care for. Chidi felt a wave of relief wash over him, his shoulders sagging as the tension melted away. Thank you, Amara, he said, his voice cracking slightly. You've shown me what true love looks like. In that moment, Chidi knew he had found what he had been searching for all along. Someone who saw him for who he truly was, not for what he had. Chidi and Amara's love story became a tale that spread throughout Katapa and beyond. After their marriage, Chidi resumed his role in his family's business, but carried with him the humility and lessons he had learned in the small township. He and Amara continued to live simply, their lives grounded in the values that had brought them together. Their story was a testament to the power of authenticity and the importance of valuing people for who they are, not for what they have. For those who heard their story, it served as a reminder that true wealth is measured not in material possessions, but in the depth of our character and the strength of our relationships. For me, the observer of it all, the takeaway was clear. Humility and kindness open doors that arrogance and wealth never can. At the end of the day, it is the heart, not the wallet, that truly defines us. If this story touched your heart, please share it and subscribe for more tales that inspire and uplift. Let's spread love, hope, and positivity together. The end.